بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه كما يحب ربنا ويرضى. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله الناصح الأمين. اللهم صل على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين. ثم أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, we continue going over the tremendously beneficial book Aqeedatut Tawheed by the Fadilat Shaykh Al-Allama Shaykh Salih Al-Fawzan Hafidhahullah Ta'ala. We are still on the chapter which deals with innovation, which deals with bid'ah and the likes of these subjects. They are very important for us to learn so that we know what to avoid and what to stay away from. And that is like the statement of the poet where he said, عرفت شر لا للشر لكن لتوقيه لأن من لا يعرف الخير من الشر يقع فيه. He said, I learned about evil not just for the sake of learning about evil. He said, but rather so as to protect myself from it, so that I know what to stay away from. He said, because whoever doesn't know the difference between good and evil, then he will fall into it, meaning he will fall into evil. Because if you don't know what to avoid, you'll be unable to avoid it. So chapters like this, they are very important for us to learn. In the last week's class, or in the last class more precisely, we covered the definition of bid'ah. We covered the definition of bid'ah inside of the language. Naam. And that is al-ikhtira' ala ghayri mithalin sabiq. That is an invention or something which comes about in an unprecedented manner. There's no precedent for it. This is bid'ah inside of the language. Now, that something happens in an unprecedented manner. So like a new invention, for example, inside of the dunya affairs, technology, you can say this in lughatan, language, you can say about it, a bid'ah. Now, a bid'ah. طيب. We also went over the types or the categories or the things in which are innovated in. Now, and it was mentioned that you have the innovation that comes in the adat, or it comes in the affairs of the dunya. The bid'ah, or the innovation that comes in the affairs of the dunya. For example, new technologies, whether they be cell phones, computers, cars, trains, planes, etc. Then all of this is an innovation. Is new inventions, innovation. It's bid'ah. But this is bid'ah where? Inside of the worldly affairs. And the ruling for this is that it is permissible. It's mubah. Because the origin, when it comes to worldly things, is a permissibility. That's the origin. Now, it is a permissibility. So these things are permissible. And then we have innovations inside of the religion. Innovations inside of the religion. And the Shaykh, he mentions that ibtida' fi din muharram, that innovating inside of the religion is prohibited. Because the origin when it comes to the religion is that everything is prohibited unless there comes a proof and an evidence allowing it. Naam. So when it comes to the affairs of the religion, we have to have a proof and an evidence first. Then we move. Naam. And this is the way of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. As Shaykh Salih Abdis al-Shaykh, he mentions that Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, they first have a proof and an evidence. Then they take a belief. Naam. Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Naam. And this is a very important characteristic for us to know. That from the characteristics of the people of the Sunnah is that we first know the proofs and the evidences. Then we take a stance, then we take a belief. Naam. This is the way of who? Ahl Sunnah. Naam. This is the way of Ahl Sunnah. طيب. Ahl al-Bid'ah, the people of innovation, they're the exact opposite. As Shaykh Salih Abdis al-Shaykh, he mentions, is that what? Is that Ahl al-Bid'ah, they adopt beliefs, then they try to go and look for proofs to substantiate their beliefs. Now, they adopt beliefs, then they try to find justifications for their beliefs. They adopt and they take positions, then they try to find justifications for their position. Now, of course, because bid'ah is that which has no dalil, it has no proof and no evidence for it. So it is not that they can actually find a proof and evidence that supports their innovation, but rather what they will do is they will take a proof and an evidence that is not entirely clear and then try to twist and alter its meaning into that which fits them and suits them as what they believe to be a justification. So it's a pseudo justification. It's not in actuality a justification. And this is why the ulama, they mention that whenever the people of innovation bring a proof and evidence, you don't have to search around for another proof and evidence that will refute them. They say no, rather take the same proof and evidence that innovator is bringing to support whatever he's trying to support, read it from beginning to end, and in it you will find a refutation for what they're saying. Because they're only going to bring a portion of it and then bring it out of its context. Whereas if you read it from beginning to end, it becomes what? It becomes clear that what they're upon is misguidance. It becomes, the refutation for them is right there in what they're trying to present. Now, so when it comes to the religion, all innovations are haram. They're all haram. All of them are a misguidance. The Prophet ﷺ, he told us that all of them will be what? Rejected. من أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس منه فهو رد. Whoever introduces into this affair of ours what is not from it, then it will be rejected. Also, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, من عمل عملا ليس عليه أمرنا فهو رد. Whoever does an action that does not have on it our command, it is rejected. Now, so whoever innovates and whoever follows what has been innovated by someone else, or whoever does that which has been innovated by someone else, then all of these things, they are rejected. Also, when it comes to the bid'ah inside of the religion, now, the Shaykh, he mentioned the different categories that is in, the different categories that it will break down into. Now, the different categories that will break down into. And inshallah ta'ala, the recordings from the last class could be reviewed for detail about that, as the Shaykh, he mentions all of the categories that they will break down into. What we want to get into today, or what we want to start with today, inshallah ta'ala, is حكم البدع في الدين بجميع أنواعها. So now again, we're speaking about the ruling of innovation in the religion and all of its types. Now, the ruling of innovation in the religion and all of its types. Now, all of its types. No exclusion. All of its types. The Shaykh, he mentions, he says, كل بدعة في الدين هي محرمة والضلالة, all of bid'ah, all innovation inside of the religion, all innovation inside of their religion, it is prohibited and it is a misguidance. It's prohibited and it's a misguidance. Naam, it's not correct, it's wrong. This is what? Every innovation as relates to the deen, as relates to the religion. And the proof of this is the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَمُحْدَثَاتِ الْأُمُورِ, and beware of newly invented matters. محدثات الأمور, newly invented matters. فإن كل محدثة بدعة, because every newly invented matter is a bid'ah. Every innovation in the religion is what? Is a bid'ah. وَكُلَّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ, and every innovation, meaning what? In the religion, in every innovation in the religion, then it is a misguidance. It is a misguidance. In this hadith, يعني أخرجه أحمد وأبو داود وغيرهما, has been collected by Imam Ahmad and Imam Abu Dawood and other than them, rahimahumullah ta'ala. Also, what points us to the fact that all innovation inside of the religion is haram and a misguidance is the aforementioned hadith from the hadith of our mother Aisha, that is mutafaqun alayh. Naam, that is mutafaqun alayh, and that is the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, man ahdatha, whoever introduces fi amrina hadha, in this affair of ours, ma laysa minhu, that which is not from it, fahuwa raddun, then it is rejected. Naam. So whoever introduces something, whoever makes something up, whoever innovates, then that is rejected. This hadith is from the hadith of our mother Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha, and has been collected by both al-Bukhari and Muslim. It's been collected by both al-Bukhari and Muslim. Imam al-Wadi'i, as a quick side point, he mentioned that the bare minimum that an individual should memorize when it comes to a hadith is he should memorize the narrator of the hadith, who was the narrator of the hadith, the text of the hadith, and where the hadith is collected. This is the bare minimum that a person should memorize when it comes to the hadith. So again, that would be the narrator of the hadith, who narrates it. In this case, it will be our mother Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha. The text of the hadith, that will be man ahdatha fi amrina hadha ma laysa minhu fahuwa raddun, and where the hadith is collected, who collected it. So in this case, that will be al-Bukhari and Muslim, hadith mutafiqun alayh. But this is important to know because there's another hadith from my mother Aisha on this very same subject, where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Man amila amalan laysa alayhi amruna fahuwa raddun." Whoever does an action that does not have on it our command, it is rejected. Naam. So as far as the narrator, then again is our mother Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha. This other narration, naam, is also from our mother Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha. The text of it we just heard. This hadith, however, is not collected by both al-Bukhari and Muslim. Rather, this particular hadith is collected by Imam Muslim only. Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This particular hadith is collected by Imam Muslim. Now, so in a narration that is collected by Imam Muslim, our mother Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha, she said what means? That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said what means? Whoever does an action that does not have on it our command, it is rejected. Now, when one looks at the wording and the verbiage of these narrations, these three narrations. Now, these three narrations, remember the first was collected by Imam Ahmad and Imam Abu Dawood. Now, the second narration was collected by our mother Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha. And it was narrated by mother Aisha and collected by Al-Bukhari and Muslim. And the third narration, it was narrated by our mother Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha, and it was collected by Muslim only. Now, as far as the first one, then this is the famous hadith that has been collected, that has been narrated by Al-Irbad bin Sariyah. Al-Irbad bin Sariyah. Naam, famous hadith. Naam, alaykum bis sunnati wa sunnati al-khulafa ar-rashidin al-mahdiyyin min ba'di, addu alayha bin nawajid. Naam, is a wajib, a portion of the hadith that I know everyone would recognize, that it is binding upon you, wajib upon you to stick to my sunnah and the sunnah that rightly got a khulafa after me, hold on to it with your mullah teeth. That, what was mentioned, is the end of that hadith. Naam, that's the hadith of Irbad bin Sariyah. Naam, and it's been collected by who? Who remembers? Been collected by Ahmad, Imam Ahmad, and Imam Abu Dawood. Naam, ahsant. So these ahadith, when one looks at the wording, there is no room for bid'ah. There's no room. The Prophet ﷺ said, every innovation, kulla, every, not some, not most, every innovation is a bid'ah. Right? Every innovation. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever introduces into this affair of ours, period, whoever introduces anything in this affair of ours that's not from it, it's rejected. Whoever does an action that has not on it our command, any action that is supposed to be a religious action that doesn't have on it our command, is rejected. Now, فدل على أن كل محدث في الدين فهو بدعة. This points us to the fact that every newly invented matter in the religion is termed bid'ah, is a bid'ah. وَكُلَّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ مَرْدُودَةٍ. And every bid'ah is a misguidance and it is rejected. معنى ذلك أن البدع في العبادات والاعتقادات محرمة. That bid'ah inside of worship and bid'ah inside of beliefs, all of it is haram, is muharrama. All of it is haram, all of it. Naam, all of it is haram. However, the Shaykh, he mentions, he says, وَلَكِنْ التَّحْرِيمُ يَتَفَاوَتُ. But the level of it being haram, naam, the level, and it'll become clear what the Shaykh he means by this. The level of its prohibition will vary. The level of the prohibition, it will vary. Naam, it will vary according to what? بحسب نوعية البدع. It will vary according to the type or which of the two types of bid'ah that it is, or according to which bid'ah it is. Naam, according to which type of bid'ah it is. Naam, this is a better way to translate it. So according to which bid'ah, which type of bid'ah will determine its exact ruling. It's all haram, naam, but some of it is more haram than others, if that makes sense. The Shaykh, he says, فَمِنْهَا مَا هُوَ كُفْرٌ صُرَاحٌ. You have from bid'ah that which is clear and explicit disbelief. You understand? You have from bid'ah that which is a clear, explicit kufr, disbelief. For example, kal tawaf bil qubur, like making tawaf around the graves. Making tawaf around the grave, this is what? This is from the ibadat al-bid'iyya. This is from the innovated acts of worship. But this innovated act of worship is clear and explicit disbelief, kufr. Kufr, clear. Now, وَتَقَرُّبًا, yani the person they do this تَقَرُّبًا إِلَىٰ أَصْحَابِهَا. They do this because what? Because they believe they can draw near to the occupant of the grave. And then in turn the occupant of the grave can get them nearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The exact same belief of the mushrikun. Now, the exact same belief of the mushrikun. So this belief that they have, that they can draw near unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by drawing near unto the awliya, by committing acts of worship to the awliya, then this aqeedah, this creed that they have, this belief that they have, this i'tiqad that they have, it is bid'ah. It's bid'ah. But it is what? It is disbelief. It's disbelief. It's clear disbelief. Also, تقديم الذبائح والنذور لها. Also, presenting animals to be slaughtered, presenting and slaughtering for the occupant of the grave, or making oaths for the occupant of the grave. All of this is clear disbelief. وَالدُّعَاء أَصْحَابِهَا, and calling and making dua, supplicating to the occupant of the grave, this is disbelief. وَالْإِسْتِغَاثَ بِهِمْ, and also seeking help with them in times of peril and crisis. Now, then this is with the people that's dead in that grave, then this is clear disbelief. Also, كَأَقْوَالِ الْغُلَاةِ الْجَهْمِيَّةِ وَالْمُعْتَزِلَةِ, also like the beliefs of the extreme from the Jahmiyyah and from the Mu'tazila. The beliefs from the extreme of the Jahmiyyah and the Mu'tazila, this is disbelief, clear disbelief. Now, this is clear disbelief. So now we see that this type of bid'ah is what? Is disbelief. It's disbelief. So this is the worst. Na'am. وَمِنْهَا, and then you have from bid'ah مَا هُوَ مِنْ وَسَائِلِ الشِّرْكِ, that which is from the means to shirk. It's not shirk itself, but it's from that which will lead to shirk. For example, كَالْبَنَاءِ عَلَى الْقُبُورِ, like building structures, building an edifice upon a grave. Building an edifice or a structure upon a grave, then this is from the means that lead to shirk. Even the person who built it never saw anything from the person that was dead in it, saw anything from the occupant of it. But the building of it is what is going to lead to shirk, because it's going to pave the way for others to come and do that. Now, also, the Shaykh, he mentions as an example, وَالصَّلَاةِ وَالدُّعَاءِ عِنْدَهَا, and to pray and to make a dua, to supplicate near these structures or at these structures. A person, he'll come, as some of the Sufiya, they used to try to make points. وَعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. Some of the ones up in New Jersey, they used to try to make points. So one of them, at a funeral, trying to make a point and to refute the Aqeedah of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, to refute the Islamic creed, he decides, I'm going to pray here in this graveyard to show that it's okay. So he prayed in the graveyard. It's not permissible. Bid'ah. Now, if he come and he says, well, I was praying unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I wasn't praying to nobody dead here, I was praying sincerely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's bid'ah, rejected. The Prophet never did that, never commanded us to do that. Now, it's bid'ah, but it's rejected. But even in that case, it's still wrong. Because it's from that which what will lead to others to do this. Will lead to others what? To do this what? For the occupant of the grave. Or for the occupant of one of them graves. Now, so it is a means that will lead to shirk. A means that will lead to shirk. And this is the way of shaitan. This is the way of shaitan. His plan is not a short-sighted plan. He looks down the long run. You understand? If he can't necessarily misguide you as an individual, but he'll resort to using you to misguide others. Now, like if you reflect on the people of Noah, when they first made those statues, that generation didn't worship those statues. They didn't worship those statues. They made the statue, so what they did was what? It paved the road to shirk. It paved the road to polytheism. Now, Shaitan knew he couldn't get them to pray to those statues because they knew better. So he tricked them into what? Building them. Tricked them into building them. This will help you remember how pious they were. This will help you remember to be righteous, so on and so forth. So they built them. And that paved the way to shirk. Because the plan of Shaitan was a long-term plan. The plan of Shaitan was a long-term plan. And this is something for us to remember when dealing with our enemy, the Shaitan, is that his plan and his strategy is long-term. على كل حال, this bila shak wa bila rayb is horrible. Not as horrible as the first type, which is clear disbelief, but it's nevertheless still horrible. نعم. طيب. ومنها ما هو فسق اعتقادي. And then you have what is fisq, what is a crime. Now, what is a crime in belief? كبدعة الخوارج, like the bid'ah of the Khawarij, والقدرية, والمرجئة, والأقوالهم, واعتقاداتهم, ومخالفات الأدلة الشرعية. Like the bid'ah of the Khawarij and the Qadariyah and of the Murji'ah. Because, and the Shaykh, what he means is that this type of bid'ah is the type that is a crime, is a tremendously nasty, despicable sin, right? But these groups are groups that the ulama have not made takfir upon. So they're Muslim. These are groups that the ulama, they have not made takfir upon. Now, there is a difference of opinion with the Khawarij. Some of the ulama, they make takfir upon them. Of the ulama, they say that they're not disbelievers. They're Muslims, but they're sinners. They're sinners. And they're from people of innovation. And they're despicable and so on and so forth. We have others from the ulama, they say no, they're kuffar. They're disbelievers. So what the Shaykh is mentioning, meaning from the standpoint of those ulama who see them as still being Muslims. Then you have the Qadariyah. The Qadariyah, as we know, the first Qadariyah, when the Qadariyah first started, those ghulat, they were kuffar. They were kuffar. Because they had the belief that Allah doesn't know what's going to happen until it happens. وَعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. You understand? So due to this is why you find the Sahaba make takfir on them. They say, no, these are kuffar. They're kuffar. Right? طيب. The later groups of the Qadariyah, they don't have that belief. They don't have that belief. So their level of going astray in the bab of Qadr, it is that which does not expel them from Islam. So they're still Muslims. So this is the group that the Shaykh is speaking about. Not the first Qadariyah, like those that I mentioned inside of the first hadith, inside of Sahih Muslim, Hadith Jibreel. But the later Qadari, later groups of the Qadariyah, who are still inside the fold of Islam. Who are still inside the fold of Islam. Murji'ah and the Murji'ah, who are in the fold of Islam. So the Shaykh, he says, so their beliefs and their statements, then this is sinful And it is a heinous sin because it goes against the proofs and the evidences of the legislation. It goes against the proof and the evidences of the legislation. So what they are upon is bid'ah. But it's not the type of bid'ah that will lead them outside of Islam. Now, like, وَمِنْهَا مَا هُوَ مَعْصِيَةٌ. And then you have bid'ah that is sinful. Now, and this is one of those occasions where really the English language doesn't give us support. Because fisq and ma'asiyah usually are translated very similarly. Crime, sin, to the end of it. In any event, the bid'ah of the likes of the murji'ah and the khawarij and stuff like this, you understand in your mind conceptually that level. Now, that level. That type of stuff that harms them and it harms others. It harms them and it harms others. It's harmful for others. But then you have a type of bid'ah that is less than that, where an individual primarily in this, he's harming himself. He's doing something that has nothing to do with the deen of al-Islam whatsoever. Harming himself. Now, wait. An example of this is the Shaykh, he mentions كبدعة التبتل والصيام قائما في الشمس والخصاء بقصد القطع الشهوة الجماع. He said it's like the innovation of abstinence, right? Like the innovation of abstinence. Person, he says, well, I'm not going to get married. I'm not going to marry. This is a bid'ah because this is not from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned that he marries women. He marries. Now, we all know the hadith. Then at the end he said, what? مَا رَغِبَ عَنْ سُنَّتِي فَلَيْسَ مِنِّي. Whoever desires other than my sunnah is not from me. Now, so this aspect of abstinence, that a person, he'll just be abstinent now and not get married and take this as a righteous deed, and this makes him righteous and so on and so forth. This is bid'ah. This is bid'ah. This is a sin. But when you examine the difference between this level and the one of the like of the Khawarij and that, is that what? This only harms him as an individual. I mean, unless he calls to it, that's something different. But intrinsically, it harms him. Now, so it's not as like that of the murji'ah and their statements and so on and so forth. It's not to that level of repugnance, but still is very repugnant. It's extremely repugnant. Now, and it's astray and it's a misguidance. Also, like the bid'ah of an individual who who fasts while standing in the sun. People who try to make things hard on themselves. Now, they do acts of worship and they try to make it, laborsome upon themselves, thinking that this will bring them more ajr. This part is very important to understand. As the ulama, they explain that if an individual does an act of worship that has in it a degree of difficulty that he didn't ask for, you understand? It has difficulty, but he didn't ask for it. He didn't try to make it more difficult upon him. Then of course he will be rewarded for being patient upon that difficulty, right? But if he intentionally makes it difficult upon himself, then this will be bid'ah. This will be rejected. So if he does an act of worship in a manner to intentionally make it hard on himself, then this is rejected. This is rejected. Now, but if he does an act of worship and it becomes hard, but he sticks it out, then he'll be rewarded. He'll be rewarded for sticking it out. He'll be rewarded for that. That makes sense? Now, that makes sense? But also, what is bid'ah and extreme is like castration with the intention of cutting off the sexual desire. That a person, they castrate themselves. So this goes beyond abstinence, where they just abstaining, but then they actually what? They actually will castrate themselves so as to remove the desire for intercourse. This is bid'ah. This has nothing to do with righteousness. There's nothing to do with righteousness. Now, and all of these types are haram. That makes sense? When you look at this, the ulama, in other words, in another breakdown, and again, these breakdowns are istilahiyya. They're breakdowns in terminology to make it easier to understand these subjects, right? So this is in terminology. The ulama, you may also hear the ulama term this as you have a bid'ah that is mukaffira. A bid'ah that is disbelief. A bid'ah that is disbelief. Right? Like the bid'ah of the extreme Sufis. Now, those who pray to the graves, those who believe that awliya can enter people into Jannah and prevent people from going to hell, and so on and so forth. Now, then this is disbelief. This is straight disbelief. Like the bid'ah, those who say the Qur'an is created. Now, this is disbelief. من قال القرآن مخلوق فهو كافر. ومن يشك في الكفر فهو كافر. كما قال السلف. Whoever says the Qur'an is created, then he is a kafir. Whoever doubts him being a kafir is a kafir too. Now, wait. So this is bid'ah that is what? Mukaffira. Bid'ah mukaffira. Wait. The bid'ah that takes you outside of Islam. Then you have a bid'ah mufassiqa. A bid'ah that is a extreme, nasty, repugnant sin, but you're still inside the fold of Islam. So you may find the ulama talking about bid'ah in these two definitions. You have bid'ah mukaffira, bid'ah mufassiqa. The bid'ah that takes you outside of Islam, and the bid'ah that you're still a Muslim. Now, طيب. It's important tanbih. The Shaykh, he mentions, he says, وَمَنْ قَسَّمَ بِدْعَةً إِلَى بِدْعَةٍ حَسَنَةٍ وَبِدْعَةٍ سَيِّئَةٍ. Whoever categorizes innovation as an innovation that is good and an innovation that is bad, the Shaykh says, هُوَ مُخْطِئ. He is wrong. وَمُخَالِفٌ. And he is in contradiction. لِقَوْلِهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. He's in contradiction to the statement of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, فَإِنَّ كُلَّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ. And that verily every innovation is a going astray. Now, that every innovation is a going astray. طيب. لماذا؟ لأن الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم حكم على البدع كلها بأنها ضلالة. Because the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he ruled, he gave the ruling on bid'ah that all bid'ah, all of it, all bid'ah in the religion is a misguidance. Now, so it's not possible for it to be a bid'ah hasana, because that's like saying a good misguidance. It doesn't exist, no such thing. Now, all misguidance is haram and despicable and repugnant. Now, طيب. فهذا يقول ليس كل بدعة ضلالة. But this person, he says, no, not every bid'ah is ضلالة. So what? He contradicts the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ said every bid'ah is ضلالة. This one comes and he say, no, not all bid'ah is ضلالة. طيب. So whose statement gets credence? Of course, the statement of the Prophet ﷺ. This person who says that, then he's clearly wrong, doesn't know what he's talking about. بل هناك بدعة. The Shaykh, he says, this person, he says, no, not every bid'ah is a misguidance. بل هناك بدعة حسنة. But you have a bid'ah that is hasana. So of course, this person, he's contradicting the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وقال الحافظ Ibn al-Rajab, Hafiz Ibn al-Rajab, he says, and في شرح الأربعين, inside of the explanation of the 40 hadith, في قوله أو يعني فقوله صلى الله عليه وسلم كل بدعة ضلالة, that the statement of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم that all bid'ah is a misguidance, من جوامع الكلم, is from those short expressions that have vast and extensive meanings. لا يخرج عنه شيء, there is no exception to it. Nothing, there's no exception to it. Nothing is removed from it. There's no exception. All bid'ah is a misguidance. وهو أصل عظيم من أصول الدين, and this is an extremely magnificent and tremendous principle from the principles of the religion. وهو شبيه بقوله صلى الله عليه وسلم, and this is similar to the statement of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, من أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس منه فهو رد, and whoever introduces into this affair of ours that which is not from it, it is rejected. Whoever introduces anything in this affair of ours that which is not from it is rejected. فكل من أحدث شيئا ونسبه إلى الدين ولم يكن له أصل من الدين يرجع إليه فهو الضلالة. So whoever introduces something inside of the religion and then he attributes it to the religion, but there is no source for it, there's no foundation for it inside of the religion, then it is repelled upon him. It is repelled upon him. Mardud. It is repelled, is rejected. And it is a dalal, and it is a dalala. It is a misguidance. And it is a misguidance. وَالدِّينُ بَرِيءٌ مِّنْهُ, and the religion is free from it. سواء في ذلك مسائل اعتقادات أو الأعمال أو الأقوال الظاهرة والباطنة, regardless on whether this issue was an issue that dealt with the beliefs, or whether it dealt with actions, or whether it dealt with statements, whether it was something that was apparent or internal, external or internal, it's all misguidance, it's all dalala to the end of it. Naam. This is the end of the statement of Imam Ibn al-Rajab rahimahullah ta'ala. The Shaykh goes on to say, وَلَيْسَ لِهَؤُلَاءِ حُجَّةً عَلَىٰ أَنَّ هُنَاكَ بِدْعَةً حَسَنَةً إِلَّا قَوْلَ عُمَرَ رضي الله تعالى عنه في صلاة التراويح نعمة البدعة هذه. He says, and these individuals, they have no proof or evidence for there being a good bid'ah except for the statement of Umar رضي الله تعالى عنه, as he mentioned about Salatul Tarawih, that and what a good bid'ah this is, that everyone praying Salatul Tarawih behind one imam, inside of all of the masajid. Then he said, and what a good bid'ah this is. The Shaykh, he says, وقالوا أيضا إنه أحدثت أشياء لم يستنكرها السلف مثل جمع القرآن في الكتاب واحد وكتابة الحديث وتدوينه. He says, and you also have those who say that there are actions that were done by the Salaf that were unprecedented, that no one disapproved of. For example, making the Qur'an all into one book, or by writing down the hadith and collecting the narrations of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They say, look, this was done, so this is a good bid'ah, right? No. The Shaykh, he says, what jawab and dhalik, and the answer for this, أن هذه الأمور لها أصل في الشرع. He says is that these actions, all of these actions that were mentioned, from bringing the Qur'an together in one book, writing down the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, praying tarawih behind one imam, he said all of this has foundations inside of the religion. This was all precedented. It had a precedent inside of the religion. He says, وقول عمر, and the statement of Umar, نعمة البدعة هذه, and what a good innovation this is, يريد بدعة اللغة اللغوية, that Umar, he meant by his statement bid'ah there, the bid'ah where? Inside of the language. لا شرعية, not the bid'ah inside of the legislation. نعم. فما كان له أصل في الشرع يرجع إليه, and whatever has a foundation inside of the religion, it returns back to that foundation. Whatever has a foundation in religion, it returns back to that foundation. So look, Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he found the people praying Taraweeh inside of the Masjid. Naam. And they were behind various imams. So what he did was he collected them behind one imam, brought them all together to pray behind one imam in the Masjid. This is not bid'ah in the religion. Why? Because there was a precedent. What was that precedent? Is that in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, did they not pray Taraweeh behind the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for 3 days? Yes. For 3 days they prayed collectively behind the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there's the precedent for praying behind one imam. But this was discontinued, and the reason it was discontinued is, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam he mentioned, was that he feared that it would be made wajib. He feared it would be made wajib. Naam, so he discontinued it. You understand? Out of fear that it would be made wajib. So when Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when he saw the people praying behind various imams in one masjid, and he brought them all together, what? As the Prophet ﷺ prayed with everyone together behind one imam. So he didn't do anything new. He did what the Prophet ﷺ did. Right? But there was no hindrance for Umar, as far as there was no fear for Umar that it will be made wajib. Why? Because with the death of the Prophet ﷺ, then all of the rulings are done. The legislation is done. So whatever was not wajib will not be wajib. Whatever was not wajib in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, then it will not become wajib after the Prophet ﷺ. So there was no longer a fear preventing them from praying behind one imam. So he brought everybody together. So when he said bid'ah, then this was what emits inside of the language. Was it a bid'ah in the language? Because remember, bid'ah in the language, it means al-ikhtira', it means an invention, ala mithal ghayr sabiq, upon a way that's unprecedented. So religious, inside of linguistically, in the language, was it, could you say bid'ah? Yes. Why? Because never prior to this had this been the general rule without the fear of it being made wajib inside of the ummah. That makes sense? That makes sense? Because now in all of the masajid throughout the ummah, they were going to pray what? Salatul Taraweeh behind one imam for what? For now on. Because there was no longer a fear that we made wajib. Such an atmosphere was unprecedented. Because before that, why this wasn't done was out of fear that we made wajib. You with me? So linguistically, you can say about it bid'ah. Linguistically. You understand? But as far as the religion, could it be a bid'ah in the religion? No, because the Prophet ﷺ did it. So we have dalil that the Prophet ﷺ did it. And once we have a dalil, then it's not bid'ah in the religion. So the only thing it could have meant was what? In the language. From that standpoint, from the language. And this is why it's good to know the meaning of things inside of the language, so that we can understand properly. Now, and a very important point that the Shaykh he mentions is that whatever has an origin inside of the religion, then it returns back to that origin. It can't be called bid'ah. If there's an origin in the religion, there's a dalil, then it returns back to that dalil. You can't call it a bid'ah. Now, but the Shaykh he says, so therefore, إنه بدعة فهو بدعة لغة لا شرعا. So if we're going to say it's a bid'ah in the language, not a bid'ah in the legislation. لأن بدعة شرعا, because a bid'ah in the deen, in the legislation, and this is the definition of bid'ah in the legislation. So I want you to get it down. The definition of bid'ah inside of the legislation is what? ما ليس له أصل في الشرع. That which does not have a foundation in the legislation. It's a very easy definition for bid'ah in the legislation. Now, so what's the religious bid'ah? The religious bid'ah, the definition of it, ما ليس له أصل في الشرع. That which does not have a foundation inside of the legislation. Now, makes sense? طيب. Got that? Let me know. Now, the next one, as far as جمع القرآن في كتاب واحد, writing the Qur'an in one book. Naam, writing the Qur'an in one book. This has an origin inside of the religion. Writing the Qur'an down in one book has an origin inside of the religion. Now, firstly, let's deal with the issue of writing. Now, let's deal with the issue of writing. لأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يأمر بكتابة القرآن. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he ordered to write down the Qur'an. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he ordered to write down the Qur'an. ولكن كان مكتوبا متفرقا, but it was written on scattered parchments. It was written on scattered parchments. Now, it was already written just on scattered parchments. فجمعه الصحابة رضي الله تعالى عنهم في مصحف واحد حفظا له. So the Sahaba brought all the scattered parchments together inside of one mushaf so as to preserve it. So writing the Qur'an, this was what? It was already legislated because the Prophet ﷺ commanded it be written. So we have dalil for it being written. And if it's written on scattered parchments, then what's the mani' for bringing it together? What's the preventative factor from bringing it together all in one book? None. And we have indication of this inside the Qur'an. Allah Ta'ala, he says, Alif Lam Mim, Dhalikal Kitab. Dhalikal Kitabu La Rayba Fi. Allah Ta'ala, he says what means Alif Lam Mim, and this is the book wherein there's no doubt. Now, so these Sahaba bring it together all in one book. Do we not have indication of this in the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah? Now, we do. And in other places in the Qur'an as well. Like, that makes sense? As far as writing down the ahadith, the Shaykh, he mentions, he says, وَكِتَابَةُ الْحَدِيثِ أَيْضًا لَهَا أَصْلٌ فِي الشَّرْعِ. He said that writing down the hadith also it has a origin inside of the religion. فَقَدْ أَمَرَ النَّبِيُّ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ بِكِتَابَةِ بَعْدِ الْأَحَادِيثِ لِبَعْدِ الْأَصْحَابِهِ. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he commanded some of his ahadith to be written by some of the companions. In the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he commanded that some of his statements be written down by the companions. Now, so the act of writing down and collecting the narrations of the Prophet ﷺ was what was commanded by the Prophet ﷺ in his lifetime. So the Sahaba doing that and the Salafy doing that after his lifetime is not unprecedented. It has an origin in the religion. So it can't be termed a bid'ah. It cannot be termed a bid'ah. Why? Because it was done in the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ. It has an origin, and whatever has an origin, it returns back to that origin. Naam, tayyib. This also was a wisdom, because a person, he may come, think he's smart, and he'll say, but isn't there the narration where the Prophet ﷺ, he prohibited Abu Hurairah from writing down the ahadith? Yeah. Why? Because it was generally, and this is why only specific and certain companions were commanded to write down certain ahadith, so that it will not, the ahadith will not become mixed with the Qur'an. So generally, right, the only thing that was written down was what? Was the Qur'an. And only specific companions were told to write down a hadith, and it wasn't something that was widespread, so that a hadith don't become mixed with the Qur'an. You understand? So the fear of generally writing down the ahadith was what? So that it would not be mixed with the Qur'an. That makes sense? Don't we have something else that was like this? That it was a fear that prevented it becoming widespread, and that was what? Now the Tawheed. That it wasn't widespread behind one Imam. Why? And it was discontinued temporarily. Why? Out of fear it be made wajib. But once the Prophet ﷺ died, it's not possible it can be made wajib. Right? But likewise, once the death of the Prophet ﷺ, it's not possible that the statements of the Prophet ﷺ will become mixed with the Qur'an. Why? Because the Qur'an is no longer being revealed. Just like the statements of the Prophet ﷺ are no longer being said. So it's clear exactly what the Qur'an is. It's clear. That's the Qur'an. So everything else that is written from the Prophet ﷺ, then it is known and is clear to all that this is what? This is the Sunnah. This is the Sunnah. Naam. So again, this was something that wasn't widespread due to a wisdom. Just like the Tawheed was not widespread due to a wisdom. But in any event, it's not termed bid'ah because there was an origin, because it took place in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Naam, that makes sense? So therefore, their examples that they bring to say that these are our proofs that there's a good bid'ah is not a proof that it's a good bid'ah, because these things, the origin is where? Is in the Sunnah. So these things are not bid'ah, but they're what? They're Sunnah. So writing down a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, this is what? Sunnah. Praying Taraweeh behind one Imam, this is what? Sunnah. Bringing the Qur'an together inside of one kitab, this is what? Sunnah. Naam. So if it's Sunnah, can't be bid'ah. Because bid'ah is what? Is the antithesis of Sunnah. It's the opposite of Sunnah. The polar opposite of Sunnah is what's bid'ah. So it can't be. Can't be bid'ah. So thus they have no proof, no evidence, no leg to stand on. And that is the reality of that affair. And then the Alama gets into the next chapter, which deals with Zuhur al-Bid'ah fil Hayat al-Muslimin, the emergence of bid'ah inside of the life of the Muslims. But inshallah ta'ala, we will save this until the next class. فنكتفي بهذا القدر، وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، وجزاكم الله خيرا.